This is the Kia Stinger, a rear-wheel drive sports saloon slash sports coupe slash fastback that is, I'm probably safe to say, the most boisterous out there Kia you've ever seen. And it has to be. I mean, it's pitched as an alternative to the usual BMW and Audi suspects. And let's just take a second to appreciate the eye-catching Stinger, shall we? There's the brand's trademark wide gaping grille, creases and vents on the bonnet, bronze detailing, vents at the front here which improve its aerodynamics, and there's even a funky key to go with it as well. Although I should mention that those vents on the bonnet, well, they're not real, they're just for show. And the big question is, does that epitomise the Stinger? Is there a fun sports car under this shell, or is it just a case of style over substance? And is a diesel Stinger even worth a look? Let's find out. Well, I've got to admit, it is pretty impressive when you first sit in here. I mean, it's still very much a Kia with its simplified dash layout, but these padded inserts, these lovely seats, and of course the cream trim do help give it a premium feel. There are a few cheaper, scratchier plastics lower down if you look for them, and on the middle of the steering wheel for some reason, but I do really like this interior. Whether or not it's up to BMW and Audi standards is debatable. Personally, I think it is just a little bit off the mark due to the inconsistency of some of the materials, but I think Kia makes up for it with its standard kit. Now, all entry-level GT line Stinger models like this one get heated seats and steering wheel, this 8-inch touchscreen with sat-nav, a reversing camera, Apple CarPlay and Android Auto, and you also get a cool TFT cluster behind the steering wheel. It's also worth mentioning that these very comfortable seats and this cool headlining come as standard too, although the spec sheet does say that some of the leather used in these seats is faux leather. The other trims, GT Line S and GTS, add things like wireless phone charging, ventilated seats, a 360-degree around view monitor, and the GTS model actually adds quad exhausts at the back. And it adds a V6 as well, but we'll come on to engines in a bit. Thankfully though, Kia hasn't forgotten about practicality. There's plenty of storage solutions in here. You've got two different sized cup holders depending on what drink you're going to have, decent sized glove box, loads of storage under this armrest, and decent sized door bins as well. And I actually really like this little storage compartment here, which I've been using for my phone. Now, as is the case with almost any sloping coupe-like car, you're almost always going to have a problem with headroom, and it's no different in the Stinger. I'm just about get away with it because I'm not that tall, but if you are over 6 foot, you're likely going to have your hair squashed. And it's even worse when you climb across to this middle seat. As you can see, my head rushes on the roof. At least that soft detailing from the front carries on to the back, although you're probably only going to benefit from that if you're bald. But aside from all that, it is very comfortable back here. I like the fact that you feel slightly reclined and like you're being chauffeured around. As you can see, legroom is in abundance, and I really like this subtle detailing on the door as well. Very Mercedes. Now, rear passengers also benefit from a convenience armrest on the door. You've got charging ports down here, which is always a nice little touch, and you've got a fold down armrest with 2 cup holders. Now, the Stinger's boot is by no means the largest in its class, with 406 litres of space with the seats up. Something like the Audi A5 Sportback is more spacious, but it's free from pretty much any nuisances. You've got a little load lip here, no drama there, a nice wide opening, and those seats fold almost completely flat. So let's just quickly run through some of the criteria. This GT Line Stinger, which is the 2.2 litre 200 horsepower diesel, has a limited slip differential, it has a fully independent suspension, and it's rear wheel drive. So on paper, from a sporty perspective, it's all good news. But how does that translate? Well, I'm glad to say, I'm pleasantly surprised at how well it drives. The steering has lots of feel, lots of natural feel actually, even in this slightly weightier sport mode. And it just corners brilliantly. What I will say though is that it doesn't corner quite as confidently or as flat as its BMW 4 Series equivalent, and that might be due to its slightly heftier curb weight, as this model comes in at 1800 kilograms. You just get a sense that it just comes a tiny bit undone in tighter bends, and you might find yourself just easing off the accelerator slightly to make the turn in a bit more manageable. But don't get me wrong, it's by no means enough to put you off chucking it about a bit. And in fact, the flagship GTS model comes with adaptive dampers, so it'd be interesting to see how they affect the overall ride, especially in the corners. Now the 2.2 litre diesel we're testing, which is mated to an 8-speed automatic gearbox, is perhaps one of the more sensible options in the range, but it's still got plenty of punch, and this gearbox is smooth right through the range. Now when you get on a winding road, you'll want to put it into sport mode just to heighten the throttle response a bit and get the most out of it. Yes, it does sound a bit hoarse when revved out, and the synthetic roar through the speakers doesn't really help, but don't be fooled by that. When you get the rev counter into the sweet spot, this engine is a hell of a lot of fun. But if you're after the full sporty driving experience, then the flagship GTS model does come with a 3.3 litre, 370 horsepower V6, which is much faster. But it's less economical, and that's where the charm of the diesel comes in. I mean, it claims an average of 40 miles per gallon, and around town we've been getting 33 miles per gallon, and on the motorway you've been getting 49, 50 miles per gallon. So yeah, 40 miles per gallon average is pretty accurate. And with CO2 of 154 grams per kilometre, you're looking at a 37% BAK tax rate for 2019 and 2020. But let's just talk about its cruiser personality for a second, because the Stinger, especially in its diesel guise, does an excellent job of eating up motorway miles. The seating position is spot on. The suspension, although slightly on the firm side, is very comfortable. You can certainly see the balance the engineers were going for. So what's our verdict on the Kia Stinger? Well, the V6 petrol will undoubtedly be more fun, but to me the diesel, it does make a lot of sense. No, it's not the sportiest, it's not even the comfiest, but it does offer a nice balance that is hard to ignore. And when it comes to BMW and Audi, it's not an obvious front-running choice, but that may be the very thing that appeals to some people. And I hate to do this, but there is actually a bit of spiel in the press pack that sums up the Stinger quite well, I think, at least the diesel model anyway. The Stinger is not a hard-edged sports car created to be brutally fast at the expense of comfort. It's about the joy of the journey, where getting to the final destination can be an anti-climax. A bit cheesy, I know, but it's accurate, I'd say. But come on, fake vents? I mean,